And to get into the lands of the West, aka the amenti, aka the underworld. Now, I guess it's already out, but we about to get into that Black Panther movie and what they are trying to explain whenever they bury my boy in the sands, and he's supposed to be able to teleport and come through the wormholes and all that. If you remember our Ancient Navigators video, we showed where they said that, most continents are, you could travel, and we'll get into it. Alright, wait to spin at the image. The statues of Osiris, the skin of the leopard was worn as a mantle over the ceremonial dress of his priest. The size represented the king of Amenti of the west. The symbol of Osiris is the crouching leopard with an open eye over it. Amenti of the west, the symbol of Osiris was always a crouching leopard with an open eye over it. We must not lose sight of the fact that the leopard skin was worn by Nimrod, and Bacchus was a sacred appendage of the mysteries, and it was used in Louisiana as well as in the Egyptian mysteries, and insisted that in honor of Osiris, it is mentioned in the earliest speculations by the Brahmins on the meaning of their sacrificial prayer to the Ilaria Brahma, and is used in the, I guess, I don't know what that word is, the initiation rites of the Soma mysteries, when the neophyte is born again and covered with a leopard skin. Out of he emerges from his mother's womb, a leopard skin is worn by an African warrior. Alcohol burning with blue tongues of flame. It can be seen from a long way as the Indios of Spanish America. Greasers have sworn to me that the light extended over the radius equal to that of the subterranean metal, causing it. I once hired an old hacienda in the Mexico, where an old Indian woman told me that she had seen the light. I searched the walls and the floor and I found nothing. Yet a man who took the place after I left and found a 10 gold doubloon in the roof, yet the mystic lambent flame of money light will ever suggest that the location of the amazing lost cache of ransom treasure of the last of the murdered Inca Emperor Atahualpa, a treasure which the Spanish chroniclers of the historians say consisted of from 600 to 650 tons of gold and jewels worth 384 million gold pesos de oro, if we're supposed conservatively that there were 600 tons of gold in a vast treasure, then taking the value of the gold at the pre-Great War #2 rate as 7 tens, the troy ounce of metal a raw gold value, leaving an account of the antiquarian value, would have been worth in 1938 $147 million, or say 835 million, and yet there is good reason to believe that the Inca nobleman told Benalcázar, the conquistador of Quito, even the immense treasure is but a kernel of corn compared to the heaps from the harvest fields, in relation to another very ancient subterranean treasure, which I shall mention later in the chapter, as Pedro Cesar de Leon virtually said in AD 1545, the backs and the bottoms of the stoutest galleons of the age would have been broken transporting the immense heaps of bars San Laguardia, the stone house of Casa de Contractions in Old Seville even had the mystery sprite of the sea, Davy Jones, consented under an old Father Neptune to its passing over the seas, the gente decente of old Spanish descent who govern today the ministers of Lima and La Paz, would lend more aid than they do to the effort of enterprising gringos from New York and London to find these immense Inca caches, which is not for the fear of the vigilance of millions of Guajica Indians who still reserve the memory of the murdered Inca Emperor of the Sun, and who would flame into revolt at the first bursting of such an enterprise. The downtrodden Indians who bear small resemblance to the pictures of the Incas, which one can see today in the old church of Santa Ana, a little northwards of melancholy Cusco, deem the day where they led and reincarnated ancestors that they will find the wheel again and come full circle and vanish glories of old Inca empires of the sun once more dawn of the western South America world, which whispered native Cohica traditions say that the lost Inca hordes lie in the forest, the bottoms of the lone mountain trends where the brooding shadows and retreat into limbo only the short space of time when they almost vertical midday sun. Oh shit. Let's skip. Okay, the jungle light that shines by itself. You get it. One might even wonder whether the walls of the Cyclopean cities of this ancient race were built by the protection against the monstrous serpents or marine lizards might swim out of the deep against them. Quine Sabe, such Negro autochthonous as existed behind the ancient civilized regions, would hardly have been regarded as serious adversaries any more than the Zulu or the Maori in the tribal panoplies would be a match for, say, a modern tank busting gun or a lower diving bomber, as their civilizations had been extended by Quetzalcoatlus to Central America. Some significance may also attach to a queer clay dish which was dug up in San Salvador a few years ago, and on which is a picture of a man flying above a group of palms and curious machines, leaving a trail of smoke behind them, and which look remarkably like a flying machine. Monsieur Lecornette, former French Consul General of Par, has made independent discoveries on his own in the Inferno Verde of modern Brazil Amazons. They include enormous stones. Oh, get the fuck out of here. Divided into sections covered the hieroglyphs. He used to photograph some of the stones, which called solar discs of an ancient sun-worshipping race. Was it an ancient race that had left the remarkable prehistoric obelisk covered with the drawings in many colors found by Senor? So, a nigga lost his place, but oh well, we gonna keep riding. It is known by Colonel Fawcett to took a great care and destroy all traces of campfires in the woods of the Continga and the leaves and the trails are followed by the adventures of reckless diamond diggers. He also, I was told, in Rio de Janeiro, took with him an old Jesuit chart and a written account of one of the missionaries who penetrated to a dead city in the central Brazil highlands. In the Brazil highlands, we talking about Luzia's people, huh? We talking about some Chichimeca. Then came remarkable discovery of the Brazilian deputy of the state of Mato Grosso, Colonel and Tisico Botelho, found the jungle of Mato Grosso near a camp of Bakari Indians about the region where the Fawcett Party disappeared into the unknown. Colonel Fawcett, uh, Theodotes can pass in a perfect condition with no signs of mildew on the glass. The colonel might almost have laid down in the bush on the day when it was found in April 1933. At this stage, I could not refrain from quoting from the remarkable letters written to me in February 1940 by the Colonel's devoted wife, Miss Nina Fawcett, his constant assistance in his scientific undertakings. Miss Fawcett, then in her 70th year, is or was recently living in Peru, where she had gone partially in order to be within aeroplane flight of Brazil, and who knows how soon that may be. Authentic tidings of Colonel Fawcett comes out of the unknown jungle of Mato Grosso. To me, that the discovery of the Theodolite compass is the reason to believe that Colonel Fawcett was alive and working with his surveying instrument in Mato Grosso jungle, and recently, as April 1933, the husband was then alive and working and probably had a certain amount of freedom, though under constant surveillance of the Indian tribes, which I believe captured them about 1926 and 1927, and with whose people there were obliged to remain. This tallies of information received by the party of Italian surveyors working on the government that the information came from native Indian sources and was sent to the president of Royal Geographical Societies of London with a letter from the head of the Sicilian mission, who had good reason to believe the story as I do. Mr. Fawcett told me in 1940 that she was ready at any moment to fly to Brazil by air in order to investigate what she would deem to be authentic tidings of Mr. Fawcett's party. I came to Peru 2 years ago to spend the rest of my life. I firmly believe that at any time someone may find one or the other water site Alamunti case containing Colonel Fawcett's diaries or the watertight metal tubes containing his maps. The diary cases would be about 60 by 40 inches in a region where I believe all three of the men, the two Fawcetts, and Riley, Walter Riley Rimmel, spent many years. Was a clean river between or near a point of several affluent meet the Rio Zingu, according to the Indian story, which sounds true to me. The tribes with whom they stayed during the years are known as the Arvidas, and the woman who gave the story to the Italian surveyors in the interior belonged to the Sicurius, the tribe nearest the locality of the Arvidas. I tell you this case, you might be making another journey into the interior of the Mato Grosso. When would be well worthwhile while making inquiries and keeping an eye and an ear open for traces of the lost diaries and the maps or metal cases, to say nothing of traces of the lost men themselves. Of course, I should be anxious to hear any news, or if I am no longer alive, you communicate with my son. The last message sent to London by Colonel Fawcett contained the warning that he might not be heard from for 2 or 3 years. The approaches to the dead city of the mountain, where he said it was guarded by a strange race of troglodytes, a small, squat negroes of furious disposition who were cannibals. They lived in holes and caves and swamp country on the edge of the unknown land, some 100 miles distant from the dead city. This race of aborigines were contemporary perhaps with the mysterious white people who built the dead cities of Brazil. Maybe they were of autochthonous or of old Brazilian islands. Though armed only with clubs, they were extremely dangerous, said Colonel Fawcett, and contact with them might prove out the question that the race of troglodyte aboriginals may be identical with ones akin to the shorter squat hairy Negro people who live in holes and in cliffs and caves in still unexplored and unknown regions of the Rio Yupes and the northern western frontiers of Brazil and the southeastern borders of Colombia. Jesuit missionaries are said to have encountered them in the 1920s in the very region. That they are very dangerous and savage, and certainly true, and very little indeed seems known about them among the servants of the Rio and the Sao Paulo. Mr. Lewis Spence cites a letter he had from Colonel Fawcett in 1924, where Fawcett says that the cavemen intermarried with the Tupis and the Caribs. So the Tupi Namba and the Caribs. The progeny being that the Negro Bactatudos of Brazil, that the Aramayan Indians of Bolivia. Fawcett seems to have told no one where he located the dead city for which he was making. I have met people in Brazil who assert that the location was in Sierra de Ricardo. The second Spanish diplomat Pedro de Ayala reported to the Catholic monarchs of Spain and John Cabot, the first Europeans to visit North America since the Vikings, had discovered in the past men from Bristol who found Brazil, implies someone from the Bristol expedition managed to find it. Nearly 2 centuries later, the Scottish sea captain John Nesbitt claimed to have spotted High Brazil on a voyage from France to Ireland in 1674. He said it had sent a party of 4 ashore, and the sailors spent the entire day on the island. There they claimed to have met wise old men who provided them with gold and silver, and strangely the captain said that the island was inhabited by large black rabbits and mysterious magicians who lived in large stone castle by himself. A follow-up expedition was led by Captain Alexander Johnson, who also claimed to have found High Brazil, confirming Nesbitt's finding. And the following year, High Brazil would retreat into anonymity and attempts to find it failed again. The map markers started leaving it off most nautical charts, and that it was last observed on 1865 as simple notes Brazil rock. Pritchard's narrative of De Fassi Quache or Bray Monet Parte upon the continental Greeks to the last memory miraculously surviving the millennia of the prehistoric settlements of people coming from northern Europe to reach the American Atlantic near the Arctic Circle. Aegea identified with Molosia or Farso Island. Pletcher also says that beyond the Aegea there is three other islands as of Aegea as from each other, and beyond them there is a great continent that surrounds the ocean.
Momo turns out fine. Momo is very social. And he never left Brian. Ain't that right, Brian?
Huh?
Momo never left you and he's very social.
He's been different places besides with me. Yeah, Momo been in daycare.
Yeah.
Momo was in daycare for like the first 3 years of his life.
Whatever, Brian.
I'm just saying. One sec. Oh, let me